Guys, so it's been definitely a while, and that's partially because of spring break and partially because I actually recorded an audio log of this and was going to have my pictures going over it, and then I realized that would be really, really complicated because I tried to do like a chronology thing and it was a mess. So instead, below in the description, you'll find some links to my Flickr account, which is kind of like Instagram but for more photography people. Anyway, and that has the albums that have all of the good pictures from my trip, because I took a lot of pictures and a lot of them weren't that good. But these are the ones that, if they're not like actually like photography-wise good, like pure quality, are at the very least interesting. Anyway, so the trip went great, as I'm sure you can probably imagine, the fact that I'm here and in one piece and I didn't get bit, somewhat to my disappointment, but probably for the best overall. The trip though was fantastic. Mike came in on I have a calendar right here I can pull up real fast just so I get the dates right. So Mike came in on the 26th of March, and that's when like the real journey I guess began. The day before, the 25th, the day before I went to Sydney, actually came down with some other students who from South Carolina, other international students from South Carolina who were doing their own trip. So it was nice, I had company on the train ride there. Did some stuff in Sydney, saw the Anzac Memorial, saw some other really cool things. Then the next day, Mike came in, we got to see the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge, walked about, then came up here to Newcastle, showed Mike around the university. I made kangaroo for dinner. That actually turned out really, really well, which I was a little bit surprised at because kangaroo's a little hard to cook. It's a temperamental meat. Anyway, so then the 27th, woke up, caught 2 buses in order to get to the airport, which we did successfully. We had plenty of time actually, which was great. So I had tons and tons of time. Took a plane from Newcastle all the way up to Brisbane, which is way up the northern coast. It's like a 2-hour plane ride-ish, something like that, 2 or 3. Got into Brisbane, had dinner. Next day, we started doing things again, so now we are in Brisbane. This is the 28th, it should be. Yep. So the 28th, we went to the Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary, where both of us got to hold koalas and see a lot of really cool Australian wildlife that we knew we might not get a chance to see out in the wild, just because Australia is a big continent. Who could think? Saw the Botanic Gardens, had more dinner, that was cool. Next day was the 29th, that's when we rented the car, so we got that in the morning, drove up, went to Australia Zoo, so we did the typical American pilgrimage to Australia Zoo, which, just a quick aside, so it was a really cool zoo. Australia Zoo was beautiful, it has, so much wildlife, it's really neat, but it's a little bit weird seeing Steve Irwin, this icon, right, this childhood icon, really like deified and hyper-commercialized here, and especially because he's passed since, since, gosh, what was it, 2006? So it's just a little weird seeing your childhood hero, like, super, super, super commercialized. And it brings all kinds of ethical questions about, should we let the dead rest, and blah, 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 but that's not for this video. What is for this video is just going on. So we saw Australia Zoo, it was really cool. We drove up, we continued to drive up north to a place called Hervey Bay. It's actually Scarness, stayed at a hostel, which hostels basically are, just trying to think, just in case people aren't aware of it. Hostels are basically like hotels, but way more bare bones, also way, way cheaper, but you often have to bring your own towel, you share rooms with a lot of people, there's no room service, stuff like that. So now it should be the 29th, I think. Yeah, now it should be the 29th, if I'm just looking at the calendar, right? I might have missed up a day here, but anyway. The 29th, we woke up early and got onto a ferry to go to Fraser Island, which was really, really neat. Fraser Island is a giant sand island off the coast of Queensland, so off Australia. And a super unique area because it's an entirely sand island. There's like one little patch of rock. It's not built on rock, which is really unusual geologically, and it has all kinds of really cool wildlife. Unfortunately, the Fraser Island tour was probably the low point, just because it was more touristy than I realized, and I take the whole blame for that. I should have done more research and seen how it was, or asked around a bit more. Instead, I just sort of went, oh yeah, no, this looks good. We get some hiking, but the main thing was just there was a ton of people, and we didn't get to do as much hiking as we wanted. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Mike still said he had a really good time, which arguably is what matters the most, because he was kind of relying on me planning everything. But Mike said he really enjoyed it, and I did enjoy it. There was we got to see some beautiful scenery, some incredible places. Even got to see a wild dingo, so that was really nice too. We stayed on Fraser Island it was 2 days, 1 night. So then if I'm looking at this right, so that was the 29th, 30th, we got back the 30th? Does that make sense? Sure. Spent 2 days, 1 night, Fraser Island. The next day, that evening we got into our hostel really late, and then I think it should have been the 31st, because I think I'm missing days here. That's weird. Whatever, I guess the days don't really matter so much. What matters is we spent 2 days on Fraser Island, The next day, we drove all the way up to, well, up and over, so up and over, so you guys can see the camera, to a place called, the town is called Blackwater, but the actual national park we went to is called Blackdown Tableland National Park, and that was the highlight of the trip. I talked to Mike, and he loved it, and I just adored it. So it's really cool because it's kind of out of the way, and it's very, I'm going to call it traditional Winneck style, where you have all this big touristy stuff, and then you find somewhere really out of the way and really little, and it turns out to be incredible. So Blackdown Tableland is this massive tableland area, which is basically massive plateaus that more or less rise straight out of the Queensland, like I guess kind of rolling plains savanna area we were at. It's where three mountain ranges intersect, and to get to the actual national park, you have to go up all these winding mountain roads that are really, really steep, and then you get up there, and every single viewpoint, vista, is incredible. Just the landscape drops away from you. You're practically on level with the clouds. It's unreal. And we saw some really cool wildlife. We saw goannas, the really big monitor lizards, like just walking around campsites. They're kind of like raccoons, which is a little underwhelming because, you grow up hearing about them and, oh, these big lizards and they're predatory and they're just rifling around trying to get food, but that's okay. Because we saw amazing vistas, got to do some really quality hiking. Unfortunately, that was another kind of 2-day, 1 night, except it's more like total time getting spent there was more like 1 day, 1 night, which for the 7.5-hour drive that was there, stunk a little bit. But you know what? Sacrifices had to be made one way or another. So, looking at this right, yep, so then that would have had to been because the 4th was when we went back, the 3rd we spent that day, so that was the 1st to the 2nd, I guess. Yeah, 1st to the 2nd. Or sort of like the 31st to whatever. Never mind, no one cares. After Blackdown Tableland, which we spent, kind of the 2 days, 1 night, we drove all the way back down to a place called Rainbow Beach, which was right nearby Hervey Bay, but slightly farther south, so a little bit closer to Brisbane. Just for reference, maybe I'll put a link in the map, or you guys can go find it yourself. I don't know. Anyway, we went to a place called Rainbow Beach, which is a little bit south of Fraser Island, and is also a really kind of geographically, temperately, really unique area, because that's where that kind of more sand blows in. There's some rainforest and some gorgeous beaches because there's a lot of iron oxide in the sand, so it dyes the sand these like oranges and reds and yellows, and it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And we got to see all that. We did a lot of hiking that day. That would have been the 3rd. The day we did all the hiking was the 3rd. I know that because the next day we had to travel, and we hiked almost, this is a little bit under 20 kilometers in 1 day, which is the better part of, I think, 12 to 15 miles, I think. Probably closer to 12. Still. It was a lot of fun. Mike got to play in the Pacific Ocean. Obviously I did too, but had some amazing Indian food, which is funny because Rainbow Beach is a tiny, tiny little town, but we had some of the most incredible Indian food I've ever had, so won that one. Now I know this day, now it's the 4th, so it was the 2nd to last day because Mike flew out on the 5th. We drove back down to Brisbane, turned in the car, got on a plane, got to Sydney, and got to stay in an amazing hotel room, because Mike got an upgrade, actually. It was at a Holiday Inn in Sydney, which, after staying days and days in hostels, including a really, really crappy one at Rainbow Beach, there was no shower curtain. That's a great way to summarize it. No shower curtain. What the heck? Really nice hotel. It was a great way to end that portion of the trip. And then the 5th, at about 10 o'clock in the morning, Mike had to fly back to the States. But half an hour before he flew out, before he flew out to the States, I flew out to Alice Springs. So I went from Sydney, so the eastern coast of the country, all the way to Alice Springs, which is smack dab in the middle of Australia in the red center. So basically the massive desert that is the heart of Australia. Because I would be spending the next 3 days in and around Uluru, or Ayers Rock. So all the big, I guess if you will, landmarks or places to see in the heart of Australia, in the desert. And so I got to go on. This was another tour, a little bit like Fraser Island, that there was more people and I wasn't in charge of where I got to go. But it was a lot better. It was a lot more up my alley, and it would have been up Mike's alley too, because even though there was a lot of driving, there was a lot of hiking to compensate it. And so I had an amazing time. Oh my God. It was incredible because, like, I'm just trying to succinctly sum this up. Just getting to see all this, it was like the flat desert, and then see like Uluru, Ayers Rock just rise up out of the desert, just this massive like chunk of sandstone, just again come out of the desert. It's taller than the Eiffel Tower. It's massive, and it has so much significance to the Anangu people, the local indigenous Aboriginal people. And so it's not just a really cool sight to see. It's not just a neat background for your selfie, which is actually a little bit disrespectful. to the local people. Because this is a place that, for the local people, can sort of be akin to the Garden of Eden in that it's where they trace their origins. It's where so many of their customs and laws and so much of their culture, that's where they trace it back. That's where they trace their origins to, and where they trace the origins of their culture to. So it's super significant to them. And in fact, it's really cool. There's signs saying, hey, you know, between this sign and the next, which you might not be able to see, please don't take pictures. These are areas of immense cultural significance. You know, if you saw a sign in the Garden of Eden that said, hey, no flash photography, I think you'd be inclined to obey it, basically. Anyway, so it wasn't just Uluru, we also got to see Katajuda, which means many heads. It's another culturally significant site to the Anangu people. Another massive sandstone formation that just comes out of the desert. It looks basically random in its placement, but it's so beautiful because it's these escarpments of red sandstone rock that just surround you on all sides and just go up and up and up and up. And it's not just pure red sandstone there, because there's like trees and plants, and it was really cool. We were super, super lucky. It had been a bit of a wet summer. Sorry. Been a bit of a wet summer. So the flowers were in bloom, and the flowers around Uluru and in the desert in general never bloom for longer than a week or so, so they come in spurts. And so normally there will be photographers who will wait out for weeks, waiting for rain to come and waiting for these flowers to bloom. So in some ways, getting to see those was a little bit more valuable than seeing Uluru, only because, you know, Uluru doesn't go anywhere, whereas the flowers do. So it was very special getting to see that. And then the last thing we did was go to Wataka, or Kings Canyon, which is this. It's so cool because it's another sandstone formation, which sounds boring until you're there and you see how different and unique all these places are. It's this huge horseshoe-shaped canyon. We climbed up to the top where it's more of a plateau and got to look down and see how the canyon shelters this chunk of the desert. So there's all these forests. Well, not all these forests. That makes it sound a little too big. But there's like a forest inside and an oasis with ferns and cycads and all this stuff. And it was beautiful. And I got to do a lot of quality thinking out there because there wasn't a lot of cell reception, which helps a little bit, as I'm sure you can imagine. And, you know, I was kind of by myself. There were other people on the tour, and actually I basically acted as a second tour guide. Our tour guide was named Ads, and he was a phenomenal person. Oh my god, I could wax for 15 minutes straight on this guy. But he was knowledgeable and kind and hilarious and funny and helpful. And I helped him with a lot of stuff because no one else really wanted to. So, I mean, I ended up cooking lunch for our group of 24 people twice. I helped with dinner, I helped move stuff back and forth, I helped organize people at different points, which was nice because it got me really involved, and I love being involved. But anyway, the point is that I was mostly by myself, though. And so 3 days of basically getting to do nothing but think lets you cover a lot of mental ground. And so I basically emerged from the desert vaguely Old Testament-ish with, I wouldn't say a new outlook on life because that sounds really, really cheesy, but just a better understanding of, like, kind of what I want, what I should do with myself, and a bunch of other stuff like that. It was a really good time to think, and I covered a lot of good, positive mental ground. There we go. That's a good way to put it. That sounds a little less cheesy. But it was incredible. Also bought some Aboriginal art, which is cool. And what's nice is that it's easy to peddle, like, counterfeit Aboriginal stuff, or Aboriginal-inspired art, and just label it Aboriginal art. Basically, instead of having someone paint, you have a machine paint. And in Alice Springs, to kind of try and prove that, hey, this is the real deal, they have certificates of authenticity, which sounds a little bit shady, but you kind of need to in a world of counterfeiters. So you have a laminated diploma with a picture of the artist, a brief biography of them, their signature and everything else. And I bought a couple pieces for me and some other friends, which is really cool because it's a way to try and support the Aboriginal culture and get some really beautiful artwork in return. So goodness, it was awesome. Okay, about to run out of time. Too long, couldn't listen. Mike and I's individual trip was amazing. We got to see everything that we wanted to, do what we wanted to, and arguably more, with getting to go to Blackdown, an excellent decision and being a phenomenal time. My individual trip to Alice Springs in the center of the desert was incredible. I covered a lot of positive mental ground, got to see some incredible sights, and did stuff that some people only dream about. Back here at uni, studies resume. Everything should be great. I think things will be fine. I don't really have a good reason that they wouldn't be. So, woo! Should start resuming my upload schedule as usual, starting next week, as I'm sure you can imagine. So until then, guys, thanks a ton for watching. If you like, leave a like, subscribe if you are somehow finding us for the first time, and otherwise, thanks again for watching. Bye!